The house was deafeningly quiet. Echoes of laughter, once so familiar, now stung with the silence of absence. Moving boxes sat half unpacked, their contents a jumbled mess of memories. She traced a finger across a framed photo of her children, their smiles frozen in time, a time when life felt whole. Now they were building their own lives, miles away. She was proud, of course, but the silence was a heavy cloak. Divorce had been its own storm, and she'd weathered it, but this quiet felt different. This was the quiet of starting over, alone. She wandered from room to room, the air thick with the scent of packing tape and uncertainty. Each room held the ghosts of yesterday, the echoes of family dinners, bedtime stories, teenage heartbreaks shared. Now the walls seemed to press in, the emptiness a tangible presence. She yearned for the familiar chaos, the comforting weight of responsibility. Now there was only silence, and the daunting task of rebuilding a life she hadn't planned for. The moving truck rumbled to a stop, its arrival marking the end of one chapter and the start of another. The new town was a kaleidoscope of unfamiliar sights and sounds. People rushed by, their lives a stark contrast to the quiet stillness she carried within. She felt adrift in a sea of unknown faces, her own reflecting the vulnerability she felt. Her new apartment was small, but it held promise. Sunlight streamed through the windows, painting the bare walls with warmth. She stood in the center of the empty living room, the only sound the hum of the refrigerator. It was a blank canvas, a fresh start. Taking a deep breath, she unpacked a box labeled kitchen, the familiar clatter of mugs and silverware a small comfort in the unfamiliar space. This was her chance, she realized, to create a space that reflected who she was now, not who she'd been. And in that realization, a flicker of hope ignited within her. The lake, nestled like a hidden gem amidst the bustling town, became her sanctuary. Each morning she'd walk along its shore, the rhythmic lapping of water against the rocks, a soothing melody. The rising sun painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, a daily reminder of hope and new beginnings. With each step, she could feel the weight on her chest lighten, replaced by a sense of peace she hadn't realized she craved. In the quiet of the morning, she began to hear her own voice again. The voice that had been drowned out by the demands of family life, by the expectations of others. She started a journal, pouring her thoughts and fears onto the pages. Sometimes they were filled with sadness, with longing for what was lost. But more often, they held a quiet strength, a determination to find joy in this new chapter. She wrote about her dreams, about the woman she wanted to become. And as she wrote, she realized that she was no longer defined by her past, but by the possibilities that lay ahead. The yoga studio, tucked away on a quiet side street, became her haven. The gentle stretch of her muscles, the focus on breath and body, helped quiet the constant chatter in her mind. With each class, she felt a renewed sense of energy, a strength she hadn't realized she possessed. She started small, attending one class a week, then two. Soon, she found herself looking forward to the camaraderie, the shared smiles and words of encouragement from her fellow yogis. Her apartment, once an empty shell, began to reflect her evolving spirit. She painted the walls in warm, inviting colors, hung artwork that spoke to her soul. Plants, thriving under her care, brought life and vibrancy to every corner. She started cooking again, experimenting with new recipes, the aroma of spices filling her home with warmth. She reconnected with old friends, their laughter a balm to her soul. And slowly, organically, she began to build a new life, one filled with purpose and joy. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, she knew. There would still be challenges, moments of doubt. But now, standing on the precipice of her new life, she felt a surge of hope. She was no longer afraid of the unknown, but embraced it with open arms. The woman she was becoming was stronger, more resilient than she ever thought possible. And as she looked towards the horizon, she knew, with a certainty that settled deep within her bones, that the best was yet to come.